Well, what do we have here? Welcome to Pablo FC. We'll talk about football and everything in between. And today we've had shock upsets left, right, and center. And we've also had some routine wins in the UEFA Champions League. So we're here to review at least day one of match day two of the UEFA Champions League. And these are the games that happened on Tuesday. Most of us must have watched it and all of that. I was following two games, but we'll talk about all of them and break it down basically. And basically, we could talk about confidence and how things are, how teams are playing and all of that. But yeah, first and foremost, the shock upset is the one we're going to start with. Or should we leave it for later? Okay, let's leave it for later. No, let's talk about it, basically. The shock upset is the one we'll start with. Galatasaray 1, Liverpool 0. This was the headline result of the evening. The victory for, Gala was secured by a first half penalty from Victor Osimhen. He scored confidently down the middle. And obviously, Liverpool looked like they were huffing and puffing. And then the defeat meant that they've had back-to-back losses for both Premier League and the Champions League under manager Arne Slot, leading to early questions about his tenure. The night was compounded for Liverpool by an injury to goalkeeper Alisson. Now, I watched the game, observed the game, and I was looking at it. It was more of a huff and puff, like I said, from Liverpool. But in the end, you have to think about it from the perspective of the fact that Liverpool tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. There were so many things, so many factors that were in play for that game. But in the end, Galatasaray grounded out the win. That's why the fact that they tried to injure Victor Osimhen, Jones was being a bit rough and being a bit hard and all of that. Liverpool were going so hard at the game. But Galatasaray grinded out a win at home at the Liverpool stadium. I mean, at Galatasaray's home stadium in Istanbul. So they shocked Liverpool. They brought on Salah, nothing, everything. There was even at a point where they wanted chaos in the box, and in the end, it wasn't to be. But sadly for Liverpool, Alisson is injured. Hopefully, he's ready for them to play in the Premier League. But that will mean back-to-back loss in two consecutive games. The loss against Crystal Palace 2-1, and now 1-0 to Galatasaray in the Champions League. So it leaves us, thinking and rubbing our palms for what's going to happen in the future with regards to their Champions League and all of that. But it's still early days, and we can continue to observe. And then, obviously, the Giants in the Champions League showed their dominance. Pafos won, Bayern Munich 5, and it was an easy night's work for Vincent Kompany's Bayern. Harry Kane continued his ridiculous form, scoring to bring his season total to 16 goals in 9 games. Goals also came from Rafael Guerreiro, Nicolas Jackson, his first for the club, and then Michael Olise. Pafos also did manage to score their first ever Champions League goal through Miroslav Orsic. It's one game that you could tell, basically a whole lot of things going on back and forth. But when you see that fixture, you would know that Bayern Munich were going to smoke Pafos. But it is what it is. And Bayern Munich, routinely beat Pafos in Pafos's home, 1-5. And then also another one that was an away game for another giant was Kairat Almaty and Real Madrid. I watched that game as well, followed it from the first half. Real Madrid cruised to victory on the mammoth trip to Kazakhstan. I think it was 13 hours trip. It was a 13 hours trip for Real Madrid, basically. Spearheaded by a spectacular Kylian Mbappé hat-trick. The French top scorer scored his third goal, which saw him equal Karim Benzema's record of 4 Champions League hat-tricks. And then also Eduardo Camavinga coming in added a late fourth for Xabi Alonso's side. So Real Madrid, I also watched that game. Real Madrid were just, at first it felt like Real Madrid were struggling. If you look at that game, it felt as though Real Madrid were struggling but they were dominant, just missing chances. Kylian Mbappé missed, I think, 2 chances. Vini Jr. missed, I think, 2 chances as well. But it was a good game. to watch for both teams, especially as Kairat Almaty were showing themselves as, were ready to really play well until Real Madrid got the penalty. And then as Real Madrid got the penalty, then Kylian Mbappé just continued to score. And then he got his hat trick. From the third goal was a shot outside the box. And then I think Camavinga came on barely 2-3 minutes into coming in. He started the play, and then he got a cross from Rodrigo, and then he just headed it into the box. And then the last one was from Diaz, Brahim Diaz. So it was a good goal, a good game, or a show of like a comeback, even though it was lowly. Kairat Almaty of Kazakhstan, but it was a good comeback to score 5 goals, considering how they did in the weekend against Atlético Madrid, which takes us to Atlético Madrid, where they continue their form. They are called the high-scoring thrillers. Atlético Madrid 5, Eintracht Frankfurt ended 5-1. Atletico Madrid 5, Eintracht Frankfurt 1. Diego Simeone's side put on another dominant offensive display, hitting 5 goals for a second consecutive game. Seems like they've become free scoring again. The scoring started early with Giacomo Raspadori and continued with Robin Lenormand and Antoine Griezmann, as he scored just before halftime, marking his 200th goal for the club. Further goals came from Guillermo Simeone, Giuliano Simeone, and a penalty from Julian Álvarez. Good goal, good game. Super firing. Everything was just happening for Atletico Madrid, and hopefully they will continue their form, moving into the weekend. I think Atletico Madrid's next game in the weekend would be, let's look at that. Atletico Madrid will play Celta Vigo in the weekend, and this means that Atletico Madrid have 3 consecutive wins and are unbeaten in the last 4 games: 1-1, 3-2, 5-2, and then 5-1. So all competitions. So they seem to have picked up form, and the next game is on the 5th of October against Celta Vigo. And then the next one is basically another high-scoring one. Olympique Marseille 4, Ajax 0. Marseille ran riot at the Velodrome, and that is Marseille's home. Igor Pixau scored a quick brace to set the tone, and then Mason Greenwood made it 3 before the half-hour mark, and then Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang capped off the performance with a goal, adding to his 2 assists. So it was a good one for Olympique Marseille, considering the fact that they narrowly lost in the first game that they played, I think, against Real Madrid, but eventually, they delivered. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang also scored. Who did Marseille play in this Champions League first leg? I can't remember, but I know I watched that game. Because they gave those people a tough one. It must be Real Madrid. But let's see. Maybe we'll find that out. So the previous game for Marseille was... Let's find that out pretty quickly. Previous game for Marseille was the last game they played. It was PSG. No, it was Real Madrid. Yeah, I said it. Real Madrid 2-1. I think I remember that goal. They first scored, and then Real Madrid came back and beat them 2-1. But obviously, Marseille are unbeaten in the last 3 games now. They beat PSG 1-0, beat Strasbourg 2-1 in Strasbourg's home, and then 4-0 against Ajax, which takes us to the next game, which was Inter, another high-scoring one, versus Slavia Prague. The Italian Giants sealed a comfortable home win with a quick burst of goals, including a brace from Lautaro Martinez and one from Denzel Dumfries. Good game. It was quick fire and everything. If you watch the highlights, you see that there's nothing more than just a quick fire win for Inter Milan. And then, obviously, there was some comebacks and homecomings for other teams. The last two games that happened on day one of match day 2. Bodo Glimt 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. The sad thing about this good Bodo Glimt one was that they missed a penalty. That penalty was like one of the worst penalties you've ever watched. He hoofed it over the bar, maybe the pressure and all that. But Bodo Glimt were at home. And I remember Bodo Glimt playing against Manchester United and giving Man United a tough time, the Norwegian champions. So Tottenham had to fight hard for a point in Norway. Bodo Glimt took a stunning 2-0 lead with Jens Petter Hodge, scoring both goals, capitalizing on some slack defending, and Spurs mounted a comeback with Mickey van der Ven striking back before Richarlison bundled in a late equalizer to save a point. Spurs are walking on a tightrope, but we shall see. And the next one is Chelsea 1, Benfica 0. That was a return of the special one to Stamford Bridge. And it was not a good homecoming for Jose Mourinho. Basically, it was a good game, but Chelsea didn't score another goal. They didn't score a goal in this game. It was an own goal from Richard Rios. Chelsea secured their first Champions League victory in over 2 years, spoiling manager Jose Mourinho's homecoming to Stamford Bridge. The deciding goal came from an own goal from Richard Rios, who put the ball in his own net from an Alejandro Garnacho cutback. Now, apart from that, Benfica outplayed Chelsea, especially in the second half. In the first half, Chelsea were in control, but if not for Moises Caicedo, who was actually in control of things in the midfield, putting out fires and stuff, being so aggressive and stuff, the rest were just off and off and off. Pedro Neto tried, nothing. Alejandro Garnacho, nothing to show. Blazed one shot over the bar and miscued one left of the post in the first half. And then, obviously, they brought in Jeremy Gittens. They brought in Estevao. They brought in João Pedro, and João Pedro barely 2 minutes in, he got a yellow card for an elbow on somebody, and then eventually a high foot gave him another red card. And that is 3 consecutive games Chelsea have got a red card. 3 consecutive games. They got a red card against Manchester United, got a red card in the last game that they lost, and then they got a red card again in at home to Benfica in the Champions League. So 3 consecutive red cards. So it gives them cause to worry, but it is what it is. Chelsea won that one without scoring a goal, but overall it was a night characterized by chaotic, high-scoring first half with 13 goals scored in 7 late games before the break. Setting the stage for a memorable night of football drama. What do you guys think? And we shall see the next games happening tomorrow or today, as at the time of watching this video, on the 1st of October, and we will have a look at those games. The games that we're expecting to come on basically is Karabakh will face FC Copenhagen, Union Saint Gilloise will face Newcastle, and then Arsenal will face Olympiacos at home. Barcelona will face PSG, and that's the one I'm going to watch and probably keep an eye on, the Arsenal versus Olympiacos. Barcelona PSG at the Camp Nou. And then Leverkusen versus PSV Eindhoven. Dortmund Athletic Club, another tough one. Monaco Man City, another tough one. Maybe Paul Pogba will play in that one. Napoli versus Sporting Club de Portugal. That one is another interesting one as well to watch. How Rasmus Hojlund's going to perform. And Kevin De Bruyne as well. And then we have Villarreal versus Juventus. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, which game you would like to watch and what scoreline, what your predictions will be for those games. We're not going to do a preview. We've done the preview already. This is a match review. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and commenting. Please don't forget to turn on the notification bell for all things football. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye and God bless.